Okay, this is for my students that missed the session this morning. The two key elements that we did was working in confined spaces. Okay, so confined spaces. Now, I'll be doing a video on the whole PowerPoint. All right, so you can catch up at some point. So just they will all be have narrated content on it. Now, what we're talking about is legislation says that a single person is entitled to 11 meters, cubed, okay, area to work in. So from that, you measure, say, your place of work. So we'll say, for instance, that you're working in a power room, okay, or a server room. And you measure it, and it is, we'll say, for instance, 27 meters cubed. All right, so you measure the height, the width, times the length, and that will give you your meters cubed. Then what you need to do is you need to measure all the furniture, okay, within that room. So for instance, if you had servers and you had 3 servers in that room, and each server was 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, all right, and we've got 3 of those. So 2 times 2 is 4, all right, times 2 by times 2, okay, gives you 8 meters cubed. Times that by 3, okay, so that is 24 meters cubed. So therefore you would have 3 meters cubed left. So therefore no one will be allowed to work in there. What you need to do, okay, your task is to measure your place of work. Now, be that an office or a workshop, it doesn't matter, right? Or it could be just part of the workshop. You measure it. You can estimate it if you want to. Then obviously measure the equipment inside it. And then from that, you need to calculate okay, so how many people can fit into that room or can work in that room? All right. So that is your first task. Your second task is a risk assessment. Now, this is already on the Google Classroom. This is basically an example. So you have a variety of, or in this case, it's the use of a bench grinder. So we're just using one item. You can either have put my teeth back in. You can have a risk assessment for an area, areas of a workshop, so a single area, the whole workshop, or individual areas, and machines and hand tools and so on. So this is the use of a bench grinder. So they've listed the hazards. You've got noise, vibration, sparks, entanglement, electrical. Then who is going to be affected by it? It's the operator or any personnel in the close proximity. For vibration, the operator. Any sparks, it could be the operator and anybody on site. Entanglement would be the operator. Electrical would be the operator or site. Now, in this case, in this bit here, we're calculating the risk. You've got the likelihood, the severity, and then the risk. These are your initial. So for each one of these, you would do an initial calculation, and I'll show you where you get your calculations from in a moment. You do all your calculations for each one, and then once you calculated your risk, you then have to lower the risk. So therefore you put in your control measures. So wearing appropriate hearing protection when required, or blah, 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 blah. And then you carry out the risk again. Now in this case, okay, the numbers come from here. So we have your hazard severity, which is your S, and your likelihood. So is it very unlikely to happen? Is it unlikely? Is it possible? And so on. So we'll say, for instance, that sparks are a possibility. All right, or they're likely, so that's 4. Is anybody going to be, could they be slightly harmed? All right, so 4 times 2 is 8, and that will put it as a medium risk. We then put in our control measures, so PPE, glasses, screens, all the rest of it, and then we reduce this to say unlikely, and it could still be a slight injury. So therefore 2 times 2 is 4, and it's now become low. You have a low risk, which is 1 to 6, which just about everything should be in that low risk. You have medium risk, and then you have high risk. If it is a high risk and you put in control measures and it remains a high risk, then that is something that your employers need to deal with. All right, so they'll have to put in, there'll be caveats, or employees will have to sign documents for certain things. Insurance would have to be extremely high, and so on. Okay, so that is your example to work off. There's your control measures that they've put in. Then they've carried out the same assessment again, but now from the initial risk being 20, it's now down to 3. Personnel in proximity was 16, it's now down to 3. 12, 6, 25 as a risk, then down to 10. In the same breath, shall we say, you have a risk assessment. This is your risk assessment form. All it is just been dumbed down and put onto one page. Fill in the activity, who's at risk, your hazards, put in the numbers. The DR is exactly the same, it's just direct risk, and then put in your control measures. If it goes over more than one page, that's perfectly acceptable, just keep going. All right, and then carry out, once you put your control measures in, then carry out your assessment again. All right, at the bottom, that's just what we've got. All right, it's just a different, slightly different version of it. This is what you need to do as your activity for this afternoon. All right, so find something in your workplace. It could be a computer. All right, it could be a printer. It could be a molding machines, milling machines. All right, turning machines, drills. It could be a hand tool. All right, even a hacksaw. Then do your risk assessment on it. Okay, once you've done that, go back into the Google Classroom, all right, and ensure that you press the button turn in. Okay, these need to be done for 4 o'clock today. All right, so your risk assessment, the example you can't do anything to, you can just look at it. However, each one of you have been given this, all right, or a copy of this, and you should be able to do that. All right, your calculations can be put into the student workbook, and then ensure that you press turn in. So both documents turn in by 4 o'clock. All right, good luck. See you next week.